This video is for worksheet 3-1 for the class Discovering Exponents and Polynomials. If you're in this class, you know the drill. Pause, grade your work. If you're not in this class, you can always become part of this class. Just go down in the description, click the link, it'll bring you to all of my classes. They're all live classes, so they're awesome for you to learn these skills because you can ask questions a lot better than just a video like this. But if you would like to watch me bring the students through this worksheet, just remember that I know what they know and I know what's the new skill. So I won't be covering everything, just what I need to for this class. All right, so I'm going to assume that if you're in my class, you've paused and graded your worksheet, and I'm going to zoom in and start talking about how I got these answers. Okay, so remember that when we add or subtract polynomials, it's like combining like terms, okay? So we just do it like we're combining like terms. Now with subtraction, that's the next worksheet. There are a couple of extra things we have to keep in mind, but for addition, the only thing we need to keep in mind is, do they have the same variable? Or maybe they don't have variables. That also makes them like, do they have the same variable? The second question we have to ask ourselves, does the variable have the same degree of power? So these are the two questions I have to ask myself. Just like combining like terms, we don't add the exponents, we don't multiply the exponents, we only do those sorts of things when we're multiplying polynomials or dividing polynomials, which we don't do division in this class. When we are adding polynomials, we treat it like we would 3x plus 5x plus 7. We add the coefficients and we just keep the variable, okay? That's all I do. I don't say, oh, this has one exponent, this has one exponent, now it's x squared. No, that's only in multiplication and division. Okay, with this, we have to have something that's like that like thing is along for the ride. Just like in fractions, we see this pattern again. We find a common denominator, we add, and that bottom does not change. It's our like thing. But if I was multiplying, I would multiply the denominators. Same idea. We're adding terms together so we do not change the exponent. Okay? Now, when I do these problems, let me change my pen color. I like to start with my highest. Okay? So first, let's write out what we have. Our problem is actually this. When we add, we don't have to worry about changing signs or anything, distributing through a sign. We just write everything out. Okay, everything's being added. Now, my highest degree of power is the 3, and I like to start with my highest degree of power. So I'm going to look to see if anything's like to this term. There is nothing. So I just write that one down. Nothing is like with that term, so it just comes down. The next ones are the degree of power of 2. And I have 3x squared minus 5x, okay? So let's write those down here. This is actually a positive 3x squared, sorry. And let's do that math, okay? We know in our final answer we're going to have this, 2x cubed. But positive 3x minus 5, we got to do that math with those coefficients, and that is going to be a negative 2. And then the x squared is along for the ride. So I just combined these two into that. All right, so now we have to go to the 1. And we have a lot of things with 1 degree of power, but they're not the same variable. I'm going to start with my x's. It doesn't matter. Actually, in my answer, I started with x's. So let's start with y's. I mean, why not? Okay, so I'm going to do the y's then. I'm going to do this y right here, this negative 3y and this positive 3y. Well, if I say negative 3y, positive 8y, negative 3 plus 8 is going to give me a positive 5y. All right? And I'm doing this out of the order that I gave the answer in on purpose to show you that it doesn't matter what order you write these in. I like to stick with standard form when I'm teaching classes. I don't care as much when I'm just doing math for me. But when I teach classes, I like to have a certain pattern that I do things, so I will always give the answer in standard form. Remember, standard form is where it goes in descending order of degree of power. So doing the 5y here does not change anything. I'm just trying to show you can write it in different ways. It's more important, did I get the right coefficient? Did I get the right sign? If it's negative in my answer, it has to be negative in your answer. That sort of thing. All right, so let's do our x's now. So this negative 6x, I gotta have another one, right? Oh, here it is, the positive 7x. So negative 7 plus 7, negative 6 plus 7 is going to give me a positive 1. You can write the 1. I'm not going to write the 1 this time, just to show you that just putting an x is also an acceptable answer. Or you can write the 1 in front of the x. Doesn't matter. And then there's nothing like with this positive xy, so it just gets dropped down into my answer. All right. Okay, so let's write this next one out and then do our order of operation. I'm actually going to write it out above so I have more room. And I'm going to add the last one to it. So my highest degree of power in this one is 3. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of these. And I didn't really do this one in order, did I? I put this y to the third at the end. So I'm going to write it in a different order this time, putting the y at the 3 second. But let's get all of my cube terms, okay? So I have negative 4x to the third plus 3x to the third. If I combine these, it's going to give me a negative 1. Okay, I'm going to put the 1 in this time. I didn't in the answer, and that's totally acceptable. I just want to show you different ways you can write it. All right, so let's see if we have any more cube terms, and I do. And this is not like with anything, so I'm just going to drop it down into my answer. All right. So the next thing I want to do is these squared. Now I have two different types. I have an x squared term with a y, and I have a y squared term with an x. Okay, let's go ahead. I did in my answer, I did the x squared first. Let's do the y squared first. So this one and this one are like. All right, so a negative xy squared minus xy squared. I feel like there's another one. There is, right here. Plus 7xy squared. They all have an x with a degree of power of 1 and a y with a degree of power of 2. Now I'm going to put my 1's in here so I can see exactly what I'm subtracting and whatnot. Negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2, plus the 7 is going to give me plus 5. If I have negative 2 plus $5, plus $7, I actually only have $5. All right, so next let's look for this x squared y terms. And I have one here. So a plus x squared y. And I have another one right here. Plus x squared y. All right, I'm going to put my 1 right here. So 1 plus 5 is going to give me plus 6x squared y. So this is just another way that you can write it. It doesn't matter how you write it as long as that negative x cubed remains negative. Everything else is positive. We have the correct coefficients and correct exponents for all of our terms. You can flip-flop them all around all you want, and that's why I want to show you different ways that you can write it. Oh my, this is going to be a long one. I don't have extra room, do I? We'll make it work. let's write out what we have. Just adding everything and combining these like terms. That's all adding polynomials is, just combining those like terms. Wow, this has a lot going on. I think I might use different colors. So my highest degree of power, looks like it's only a 2, but I have the 2, 5, I have x squared y and I have xy squared. I did x squared first, let's do y squared first this time. So I'm going to go through and get all of my y squared terms. Remember, you got to take the sign that's in front of it with it. All right, that looks like it. So I have a negative. I'm going to go ahead and put my 1 in. Add my coefficients. Negative 1 plus 4 is going to give me 3xy squared. All right, so those are done. So now I got to get those, and now I have to get the x squared. So this term has an x squared. This one has an x squared. So I have this going on. I don't know what just happened. So 5 plus 2 is going to be 7, and it's going to be a positive 7, so I'm going to write plus there. X squared y, all right, and let's do the next one. All right, so I can either go, let's go with our xy term this time because I got 2 of them. And then we'll do our x, and then we'll do our y, which I only have 1 of each, so it's just writing it down. But let's go ahead and combine these 2 terms. 7 minus 3 is going to give me 4xy. All right, so next, let's go ahead and do our x term next. Well, let's flip-flop it since in the answer I gave it that way. Let's flip-flop it to my y term next. So minus 3y, there's nothing like with it, so it's just going to get dropped down into my answer. I don't have to combine it with anything. And the same thing with my 5x, it doesn't need to be combined with anything, so it just gets dropped down into my answer. Now the xy, or the constant terms, remember if you don't have a variable, you're also like. So this negative 3 here is like with this negative 5. Negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8. It's adding up my debt. So there's your answer, written slightly different, but still our negative should be in the right place. Our coefficient still tied to the right variable with the right degree of power. Other than that, you can rearrange those terms as long as you get those things right. Okay, so for this next one, I'm just adding. They get easier from here on out. The first 3 were doozies. And sometimes I do that on purpose. Get the hard ones out, and then, you know, you don't have to worry about it. The rest of the worksheet is easy sailing. All right, so if I'm looking down over what I have, the highest degree of power would be a 3, and it's not like with anything. This is not like with anything. So it's just going to drop down into my answer, just the way it is. Now, I do have a couple degree powers of 2. I have 5p squared and 2p squared. Well, 5 plus 2 is 7. And then there's nothing like with the 3. Again, you can rearrange those if you like, just as long as you get the right signs with the right degree of powers, right coefficients. All right. Let's do this one. So my highest degree of power are these 3's here. So I have a power of 3 and a power of 3. I'm going to go ahead and put a 1, no sign, so it's positive. So 1 minus 4 is going to give me a negative 3a. My next highest degree of power would be these powers of 2. negative 2a squared plus 3a squared is just going to give me a 1a squared. And I'm going to go ahead and write the 1 in there. You don't have to write the 1 in there. That's totally by choice. Okay, I can clearly see there's an a squared, just a single a squared in the red answer, okay? So, but I could also tell someone, hey, I only have 1a squared. It is up to you. It's not a big deal. All right, so our highest degree of power are these n cubes, and it's just straightforward addition. So 2 plus 5 is going to give me a 7n cubed, and then I got to combine this 4 with this positive 2. It's just simple addition again. It's going to be a 6. All right, I'm going to write this one out above. This one does something weird. I'll show you it in a minute. I have double signs. So remember that double signs follow the rules of multiplication. If the signs are the same, it becomes addition, okay? If the signs are different, it becomes subtraction. So in this case, I have a plus and a minus. I can't add and subtract the negative x to the fourth, because if I add and subtract it, it's going to go away. That's going to make it 0. Okay, and I don't want that. All right, so I got to change this. The signs are different, so it's the minus sign wins out. All right, let's get these like terms together. So I'm going to do different colors this time, I think, because this one's kind of tricky. I have a lot of different degrees of power, but here are my fourths, okay? So I'm going to write them out. If I combine those coefficients, 5 minus 3, I'm going to get 2x to the fourth. All right, so let's look at those thirds. It looks like I only have 1 cubed power, and it's not like with anything. So it just gets dropped down. And the same thing is going to happen to the square. I only have 1 square. So it just drops down. It's not like with anything. And actually, this one was not as bad as I thought it was. Nothing is really like anymore, huh? So we have this term. This is our only x term. And it just gets dropped down. Because it's not like with anything. And the last term is that negative 8. It's also not like with anything. So it just drops down. All right, let's do this one. All right, whew. Okay, I'm going to do this one in different colors as well. So our highest degree of power is the 5. I forgot to take the plus sign with that term. So I have a positive 13 to the 5th plus 5 x to the 5th. So when I add those, I get 18x to the 5th. All right, so let's do the next one. Well, there is only 1/4. Oh, there's 2/4. So there's only 2 degrees of power to the 4th. We have 7x to the 4th and negative x to the 4th. I'm going to go ahead and put my 1 in there. 7 minus 1 is going to give me 6x to the 4th. All right. Now let's look at these thirds. I have x to the third power and an x to the third power right here. So 6 plus 6 is going to give me 12. So this is going to become 12x to the third. All right, my last one. How did I get a 4? Oh, I must have just gotten cross-eyed because I don't see another constant term. Did I write this down correctly? I don't see any 6 to the second. So this whole last part, let me look at my answer. Oh, I wrote it down wrong. Okay, so it should have been, I'm sorry you guys, I started writing the problem from this one. I got all confused. All right. So let's see, I got the 18x to the 5th. Let me look at my key I made here. And then 6, 12x to the 3rd. And then -3. There's a lot of scribbles on my key here. But yep, that's all of it. All right. So there's nothing like with that 3. So it just drops down. So the correct answer for this one is actually this. I started looking at this one on the key and put a positive 6x, and I just got all confused when I was writing this one down. But it should be 18x to the 5th, 6x to the 4th, 12x to the plus 12x to the 3rd minus 3. All right, so this is the answers, how I got the answers for this particular worksheet. Keep doing it till you feel like you master it, and I'll see you in class.